than swift.
It's a score. It's a score for South Africa. Were put in by Pat Cummins in this much awaited and anticipated game in the World Cup. And they've got 311. How they've got there in different phases at a time when batting looked easy to the bats of Quinton de Kock and Aiden Markram, and then pretty difficult once Australia's fast bowlers started changing the pace on what is still a very unknown element in the Lucknow surface. So it makes for a compelling half-time conversation. Mitchell Starc has finished with a double wicket maiden, just the leg by conceded. There were drop catches. There was a magnificent 100 from de Kock. So we look back at all that and more on our halftime show on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. Dale Steyn, Anil Kumble and Tom Moody will weigh in on what went right and what didn't. Firstly, 3-1-1. The score itself. Happy if you're South Africa?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you get put in and you score round that mark and you don't quite know how the wicket's going to play, and I think Temba Bavuma said if they won the toss they were still uncertain whether to bat or bowl, it leaves you with some question marks in your mind, and your batting lineup goes out there and puts on 300 plus. I think you would feel comfortable.
The way it ended though, sometimes the whole mood in the dressing room can change depending on how the last few overs have gone?
Not really. I think, yeah, in terms of, yes, momentum and all that, we keep talking about it. But yeah, I thought the last few overs, Marco Jansen sort of, should have actually given the strike to David Miller.
Yeah.
He was the aggressor. You know David Miller, what he can do from there on. Perhaps, South Africa from that stage could feel that they were probably 15-20 runs short, but 311 on this surface is a very good score.
If you're the kind of coach that likes to write down things as they went on what's happening, Tom Moody would have made a lot of notes in that innings. So why don't you take me through what those notes would have looked like, Tom?
No, I'm on my third book. Yeah, look, top of the list is I felt that the Australians lacked I think decisive, aggressive play up front. I think they very much sat back and didn't attack early. The Australian attack is a high quality attack in all formats of the game. And I just feel that this is the second game in a row where we didn't, fire our big guns out often enough. Like Starc and Hazelwood needed to bowl more overs. We needed to be more aggressive. We needed to have more aggressive fields. We needed to bowl with more aggression on our line. I thought it was quite a timid approach early on, waiting for something to happen instead of making something happen. And you've got sat in the studio there, one of the greatest fast bowlers of all time. What Dale Steyn did was make things happen with a new ball in his hand.
Dale, you want to elaborate on that? Because do you agree with Tom's points and just your analysis of how they bowled for a large percentage of that innings versus how they bowled in the last 10?
Yeah, Tom's kind of spot on. And I also thought they were a little unlucky. In the beginning, it felt like there was a couple, I use this word reluctantly, jammy kind of things that happened. There were a couple edges that didn't quite carry through to the keeper. There was one or two catches that were on the boundary that kind of went down that could potentially have been caught. And those are the things that I know Australia to do extremely well. They kind of take those things, Abbott taking a catch and passing it back in. These are the kind of things that I always feel Australia are really brilliant at. And probably because when it starts where your foot's not quite on the pedal and you're not that aggressive foot forward, these little things tend to go against you and not go in your favor. And it starts with the ball. When you're just kind of holding it there and you're waiting for things to happen, they almost allowed Quinton de Kock to just bat, and if you just let him bat, he's going to get to 100. Temba's going to bat and he's going to score runs freely. So you have to find ways in being aggressive. And Australia's approach, whenever I've played against them, has been very aggressive. It's had aggressive fields, it's been aggressive body language, and extremely aggressive fielding in the sense that they cut off singles, they take their catches, and they would just seem to be a little bit on the back foot, maybe a little bit of a whiplash from the game against India. But let's see if they can come out with the batting and find a way to score runs on what could be a little bit of a difficult wicket to bat on in the second innings. So
you almost sense that while that was more your opinion of how they batted, but that attitude, mindset stays in the field in the second game too of the World Cup?
Yeah, it does. There's certainly some spillover from the India game, but even to Quinton de Kock, the two right-arm fast bowlers never came around the stumps. They kept bowling the same line, and Quinton de Kock was happy just playing that pull shot. I mean, in fact, he sort of said, "What have I done here?" I thought the fielder was in the circle when he just clipped that to Hazelwood. So I felt that in terms of like what Tom mentioned, they were just probably waiting for things to happen, especially when Quinton was batting. Ideally, you've seen teams come around the stump straight away to Quinton, at least as an option, but they never took that option. So it was a bit of a, unlike Australia, you would expect their fast bowlers to be sort of spot on from ball one. That was not the case today.
I'm sure, Tom, there are a lot of Australian fans thinking on similar lines here. We've got a bloody good team over here. What's happening? 5 drop catches, if you count the de Kock chance, this sort of befuddling planning where you and Dale both mentioned, you just let the opposition bat. They perhaps have given South Africa an advantage that South Africa may learn now and not give them. Very un-Australian.
Yeah, look, it does surprise me, but I think what it does, it reflects a side that is short of confidence. It looks like a side that has also been put together at the last minute. Yes, they would have had an idea of what the playing 11, or roughly what the playing 11 was going to be for this World Cup. But I think all the ODI matches leading into this particular World Cup, we haven't had any consistency with our playing 11. We've had players come and go, whether that be through injury or just sort of resting and rotating players. And I think that that can play on you quite dearly, particularly if you haven't got confidence as a group. You look over your left shoulder, you look over your right shoulder, and if you've got different people there all the time, you don't have that continuity. You do sort of, question yourself as a group, and also you question yourself if your form's also under pressure.
Just going to the fast bowlers here, because they set the tone, I'm guessing, and we know Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, and perhaps the other formats as high-quality fast bowlers. Do you sense that's a result of where their own confidence is? It's a big statement to think, are the Australians not confident? That's not something we think is remotely possible in World Cup cricket, but just the fact that the way that they bowl, they're almost waiting for someone else to get it right, and then we'll do that, and that took nearly 40 overs today. Yeah,
and just kind of looking at each other, trying to say, you tell me what's going to happen, how to get some kind of result out of this wicket. It almost took 44 overs before I started to see a change of plan, those slow ball bounces into the wicket. There was eventually some kind of thing, but it took a long time. And very a rare thing to see is that Stark didn't finish his 10 overs. A couple other guys.
Hazelwood, or Cummins.
So you're picking these 3 quicks as in the first game in Chennai, saying these are the guys that we're going with the one specialist spinner. You're picking the same guys in the second game, and they're not completing their full quota. It doesn't send a real good Australian message out that this is how we're going to take wickets. These are guys that we're going to back,
On the other hand, if you look at the end of that innings and you think, oh, they're rolling their fingers and pulling it into the pitch, that's the kind of game you want Marcus Stoinis bowling. He just bowled 2 quiet overs and never came back. So did they get their resources also wrong, or did the pitch change character as the innings got deeper?
No, we'll know only when Australia bat. It's still a good wicket. The bounce is true. It's coming on. Yes, when you start hitting the surface, there is some, stickiness, and it's stopping and coming a bit. And that we saw only towards the last 6 overs of the South African innings. But on a unknown surface, you generally sort of bowl cross seam early on to check what's happening. Where I don't think the Aussies, the fast bowlers, just ran in and tried to nick people off because they saw a little bit of bounce and carry. They felt that this is not a wicket where you need to try too many things, just keep bowling there. But Quinton de Kock is in form, so he just capitalized on that. Bavuma, that partnership of 100 plus certainly put the pressure back on Australia, and from there on they had to look at spinners to get the batters out. I thought Maxwell bowled exceptionally well on the surface.
Let's go straight there then. I mean, Dave's also getting annoyed. He's like, yeah, the Aussies were terrible. No, let's talk about how good South Africa was, shall we? And they were. But let's also start with the point Anil makes. In all that the Australians got wrong in the field with the ball, Glenn Maxwell is the standout bowler, Anil Kumble. 2 for 34 and 10.
Yeah, I think the pace that he bowled, he got it right. I think Maharaj will bowl really well on this surface. The finger spinners, getting a little bit of drift, and also giving a proper tweak rather than just even Zampa. Was the trajectory was more. It was not over the top. That's something that you need to try because it's a big ground. It's not easy for batters to clear the field consistently. So I thought Maxwell bowled really well. There was turn on offer initially, but I thought he got the pace right and he bowled in good areas.
I think we've got to tweak his cricket for profile, Tom, to genuine all-rounder. He's coming on first change now.
He's Maxwell, sorry.
Yeah, I said we've got to change his profile to genuine all-rounder. He's coming on first change now.
Well, yeah, look, he is pretty much a genuine all-rounder. But again, I think when we saw the movement that Stark was getting, the swing that he's getting, the bounce that was getting through to the keeper with that new hard ball, if I was a fast bowler, I'd be disappointed if I didn't bowl at least 5, if not 6, in my first spell. Or if I was the first change fast bowler, I'd be pretty annoyed I wasn't given that hard new ball as soon as possible so I can have an impact. In 50-over cricket, you know, one of the things that is discussed in team meetings is being aggressive in that first 10 overs. Try to take wickets. You know the opposition are going to come hard at you. You know they're going to try to break the field because you've got the field restrictions. But if you sort of sit back in the game and wait for something to happen and try to be a little bit more defensive with your approach, you know, that will inevitably backfire, which it did for Australia today. I think you need to throw all your guns out and throw everything at it. Now, Maxwell bowled exceptionally well. Whether the timing of his deployment was right, you know, we questioned it in Chennai. I'm questioning it again here. I just felt that, you know, we need to be, and I say we, Australia need to be looking to around the field to their resources and saying who's the person that's most likely to take a wicket in the first 10 to 15 overs.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they've got their job and their work cut out now as a result of the runs South Africa have got. They got it because Quinton de Kock just was showing no mercy with all these errors that Tom, Anil and Dale have discussed from Australia. So let's talk about de Kock. Back-to-back hundreds. That's a way to start the World Cup in what I believe is his final World Cup.
Yeah, he's having a pretty fun World Cup, isn't he? You know, he probably won't even keep tonight, knowing Quinny. It looked like he was cramping there. He did it in the first game, got 100 and said, I'll sit up in the dressing room. But wonderful batting, back-to-back World Cup hundreds, great. He summed up the conditions really well. And he played some of his favourite shots that he likes to play. Australia made it simple for him. They just allowed him to kind of bat. They didn't really look like they ever challenged him. And he took on that fine leg boundary. It's an area that he likes to take on. He scored some runs through point where he also hits the ball really well. And the rest of the time he just presented a good full face of the bat and batted. You know, he wasn't really ever challenged with anything, barring the odd short ball here or there. I think he got one early where he gloved it over the keeper. Other than that, it was almost like faultless. He just was allowed to kind of bat. And when you allow good batters to bat, they're going to score runs. It's as simple as that.
It was almost a forgotten 100 against Sri Lanka because so many more hundreds came after that, Anil. But if South Africa go on and win this, that de Kock innings, which was effectively a first half of the first innings kind of 100, is perhaps the difference.
Yeah, absolute brilliant batting from Quinton de Kock, back-to-back, coming from a very good innings in Delhi. But I thought he batted brilliantly. I mean, he's a quality player. And you know, it's his home surface, which he didn't get to bat too many times in the previous IPL. So I'm sure it's a message to them as well, saying, listen, you know, I'm here. I've got 100 here. But it was a brilliant knock from Quinton de Kock.
Yeah, let's not get Tom started on that. We already just shredded that to pieces when we were here for the qualifiers. But yeah, good 100 that from Quinton de Kock and from Aiden Markram. That's two standout innings as we now see the rest of the scorecard. Lots of 20s and 30s. But this is the difference in them getting an above par score, Tom. I'm guessing you're still saying this is very much an above par score?
Yeah, I think it's about 50 above par, personally. Wow. And again, that's just looking at it from afar, looking at the way the ball behaved, you know, for the spinners with the new ball, the way it bounced, and it swung a little bit, you know, early for new ball bowlers. So I think anything over 300 is a significant score on that surface. You know, Quinton de Kock just showed purely his class. You know, he was just in cruise mode. You know, as soon as he, you know, got away with a couple of boundaries, as Anil said, that really the Australians never really challenged him. You know, he just went out there and did his, you know, rotation, a strike, picked off a boundary when he felt like he needed to. And, you know, the Australians didn't change their approach at all. You know, as it was mentioned earlier about, you know, changing the angle, coming round the wicket, trying to bowl into his off stump to cramp him for room. We've seen him chop on quite regularly. You know, things like that were just, you know, seem to be in the distant thoughts of the Australian think tank.
They may well still go on and win this, given it seems like a good score, Dale, but just if this game gets close or if they have to still improve on how to maximize advantage, that last partnership between Jansen and Miller, what was your frustration from the outside of it? What would you have liked to see that you didn't?
I suppose it's probably tough when you're out in the middle. You know, you kind of know exactly what needs to happen. You want to have Miller on strike, and it wasn't happening. I think Miller went in the 44th over. He gets out in the last one, and he's only faced 13 odd deliveries. Yeah. Marco Jansen's faced almost double that. And in the context of the game, when you look at the numbers, good innings by Marco Jansen, 26 off 22. But you would like to have had Miller face half of those deliveries, and South Africa potentially putting on another 20 to 25 runs onto that total. Because when he gets into the last over, he's cold. He hasn't faced a ball for almost 2.5 overs. Mitchell Starc, who's a wonderful bowler, who can get the ball into the block hole. So it doesn't matter what the surface is. It's always going to be tough. And when you're cold, you're going to miss the odd one, and that's exactly what happened. So they probably missed a trick there in getting Miller to face more deliveries. But at the end of the day, the overall total is still a good total.
You know Marco Jansen to be a fairly intelligent cricketer, though, for as far as his game awareness goes.
Yeah, I don't think that that he's not intelligent or anything. It just seemed to play out that way. You know, like at the end of the over.
My point is the cricket smarts. I'm sure we'd sit here and think, oh, what's Jansen doing?
Yeah.
But Miller's got a role here as well, right? Miller's taking singles of the last ball, and he's the experienced player.
He's kind of sprinted through for a single on that last ball. Got Marco back on strike, and it's just one of those wickets that you kind of like. You just kind of hope, or pitches, you just hope that Miller could have faced a few more balls and gotten 1 or 2 more boundaries out of those.
As it turns out, the partnership was 30 balls. Jansen faced 22, Miller 8. That's the kind of thing you're on the dugout, you're thinking, I can do nothing about this, but this is infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're watching and you know what Miller can do in those last overs, he can really demoralize the bowling attack and he can take you on. Yes, ideally Miller should have faced a lot more than a Jansen. And whether that message or it's just panned out like that. I mean, I don't think it was intentional. It just panned out like that. But ideally, you would want Miller to face a lot more, and that's one of the reasons why he is batting in that lineup.
Did we see a bit of a moment of that sort of swagger that I thought was missing, Tom, when Glenn Maxwell almost suggested that, yeah, come on, take the 2, I'll give you the 2. As it turns out, Australia knew what was serving them at that in those last few overs.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, I think Australia their body language for me was a little bit baffling. I think you mentioned at the top of the show that they dropped 5 catches. I lost count, to be honest with you. But the thing that frustrated me, I suppose, with my coach's hat on, is just the body language and the reaction when those chances were missed. It was nearly like it was, it was laughed off. And to me, I'm not expecting a player to give another player a serve because they've dropped a catch. But at least where is that eye? Where's that sort of real sharpness, that eye of the tiger of I'm really frustrated. I've missed this opportunity, and I'm going to get back into position and make sure that I, take the next half chance that comes my way, or stop a single or stop a boundary. To me, that type of energy was very much missing in that whole 50 overs.
All right, let's look ahead now, shall we? 312 to get, and South Africa would have learned a thing or two of what's going to work on this surface. How do you expect them to bowl now, Dale?
Yeah, come out similar way that they came out against Sri Lanka. You look at Marco Jansen, look to target the stumps and swing the ball, potentially get it in that area where he can challenge LBW bowls and all that kind of thing. But then immediately try and adapt to see what's happening and where Australia are looking to score. And that's the aggressive mindset that Tom talks about. You might take the slip out, you might put him in a catching cover or catching mid-wicket, somewhere there. Something like that might work in South Africa's favour. And then KG Rabada is going to be a big call for them. And then the spinners to try and squeeze things and make 311 feel like 350. That will be their message there the whole time, is to try and defend 270. But make the 311 feel like it's a much bigger score.
Spin to play a big role, especially the kind of spinners that South Africa have?
Yes, spin will certainly play a big role, but I also feel Ngidi, someone like an Ngidi, perhaps on the surface, looking at what we saw towards the back end of the innings, he'll be quite a handful. So I expect him to sort of make inroads as well for South Africa.
Tabraiz Shamsi's got a good record against Australia. He's on a high after the series that he just had at home, where he bowled well, especially when there was some turn on offer. And since 2020, that's an improvement in his ODI career. That economy is acceptable in today's ODI cricket, and the average is just 24.8. Excellent strike rate as well for a spinner against Australia in particular. And against him is, I remember one wicket quite distinctly from that series. That was Labuschagne, I think.
The one that he ran past.
Ran past, falling all over it, stumped by a mile. Anil loved it. He's smiling right now as well. Just thinking about it. But Marnus Labuschagne has the expectations on him. There's a little bit of doubt. He wasn't part of Australia's original World Cup plans. Now he finds himself as a starter in crucial World Cup games. He's got a decent record against this opposition too. So that's something to at least keep an eye out for as we look at, sort of matchups. We showed you a matchup that showed everyone loves to bowl to Quinton de Kock, and he ends up getting 100. So don't worry about what we say. But he's got an average of 70, and he's got a role to play, Tom Moody. He's one of those players where you're wondering, right, is he just warming that position until Travis Head is 60% ready to play? The expectations from Labuschagne would be pretty significant.
Well, I think a number of the top order are keeping the seat warm for Travis Head if he does recover from his hand. I think it's really who's not firing at the time is going to be missing out. But Marnus Labuschagne, okay, he was sort of out of the picture in the early stages of that World Cup selection, but he's still a very fine player, and his quality and expertise will be very much required against this high quality South African attack. The biggest challenge for Australia is going to be the two spinners, in my view. Particularly Shamsi, under lights at night, it's always difficult to read the wrist spinner. He's hard enough to read as it is. A lot of batsmen do find it difficult to know which way he's turning it. But under lights, if you're speaking to a lot of the batsmen, they'll tell you that's the hardest time to try to read a wrist spinner. So he's going to be a handful for the Australians. It's going to be very interesting to see their approach against Shamsi. Yeah. My view is they've got to take him on and try to put him under pressure right from the get-go. And Maharaj, they just need clear plans to make sure that he doesn't build pressure by accumulating dot balls.
You sense a lot rides on David Warner. Tom, give me your prediction and how you see the second innings playing out. Have I lost your audio again? No, I haven't. Okay.
No, I'm still here. Testing. I to be honest with you, my head's saying South Africa's got far too many. I'd love to see Australia chase this down because it'll be brilliant entertainment.
Anil.
Australia is under pressure. They need to win this match. 311 is not an easy score. It'll all depend on David Warner. If Australia get off to a good start in the first 10 overs, then it's Australia. If they lose early wickets, then it's going to be a massive challenge for them.
What is the gut feel though?
I think South
Africa. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, Steyn.
Yeah, I think Tom hit the nail on the head with Australia in terms of energy. The only one that really showed good energy was Maxwell, and clearly that's why his bowling was where it was. Now look at the South Africans. I think Tabraiz Shamsi coming in, there's going to be a lot of energy in there. KG, Maharaj, they're going to show a lot of energy in their body language, which means that I feel they'll get a lot more purchase off the wicket, a little bit more spin, and a little bit more than what Australia were to do with the ball. So I think South Africa are going to win it. By how much, it doesn't really matter, but I think South Africa will win it.
Yeah. No one's going for a tie?
Not tonight.
No? No?
That's you.
Yeah. That's always me. I've been wanting it for years. Finally, it came in a World Cup final. Anyway. Right. Thank you very much to Tom Moody, Anil Kumble and Dale Steyn. So advantage South Africa, which means Australia would have started the World Cup with 2 losses. What a story that would be, and worth revisiting given how close the race for the semi-finals might end up with, especially with those 5 or 6 teams that most of us have as contenders for those positions. So we have the conversation then with Tom Moody, Anil Kumble and Dale Steyn at the end of this game on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. So do join us then and download the mobile app if you haven't already. Everything that is happening in and around different parts of the country with the World Cup in action is covered for you. Kane Williamson is set to return tomorrow, so that's great news for New Zealand. Shubman Gill's had a bit of a session too. That's positive news for India, so the app will keep you covered with that. We'll see you at the end of this game.
Stunning looks, then swift,